hey, in all disclosures, we endorsed Denver, we backed Denver, and my political action committee, Make Virginia Great Again, poured money into Denver's race. So that's where I stand on it. So in complete transparency and disclosure, we were for Denver, not for Bob. So, but Bob's now the nominee, it appears, and Melvin Adams is going to help us understand why this was not a rigged process, as we have said it is. Melvin, great to have you with us, man.
Thank you, John. Good to be with you.
Hey, let me just say one thing. Regardless of our differences in it, you guys crushed Denver. I mean, you guys got 59% of the vote over an incumbent. You were beating him in areas with the delegates in Danville, Halifax, people 3-1. I mean, it was an incredible margin of victory. You know that Riggleman only got 39 votes in Bedford? Do you know how big Bedford is? It's like a state. He got 39 votes. How's it even possible? I mean, if I just drove a car with his flag on it and dropped the forms off at the CVS store, he'd get more than 30. How did he get 39 votes in Bedford? Anyway, you guys crushed him, but you've been accused of rigging the convention because of a lot of different things. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to defend that process, Melvin.
Absolutely. I tell you what, first of all, let me just set the record straight. You said you all crushed him. That really needs to be stated that the good campaign crushed him, because in all reality, certainly from my perspective, and from the standpoint of the party, while there were members of our committee on both sides who were extreme activists for either candidate and both candidates, that's fully allowable. I encourage them, look, get involved, work for your candidates. We just have to be absolutely fair and make sure that, for example, every chairman has to be responsible to make sure that both campaigns have equal opportunity to connect with delegates in their areas. But as far as I was concerned, my focus has been to make sure that the campaigns had equal opportunity, and at the end of the day, once the campaigning side was over, that the delegates were able to speak, that every legitimate delegate got to vote. And so that was my focus and has been my focus until we've had our convention. So let me just make that clear right up front, okay?
That's fair.
All right. And if I could, let me just for a second here, because yesterday, the reason I engaged with you over text was you listen, you got a great show. There's a lot of entertainment in your show. That's what makes it fun to listen to. But my comment came to you initially because you were really raking Nick Freitas over the coals for being late on his filing date and so forth. He took full responsibility for it, and you kept circling the wagon and kept grilling him, and yet all morning long. And, immediately following when he got off, you were running ads, pre-recorded ads, encouraging people to go out and vote.
No, that was just a mistake. Our traffic person didn't kill the ad on Saturday, so the ads were not paid for. They were paid for up till Saturday, and that was an internal mistake that we made, and I apologize for it immediately. So that they were not done for any reason other than we screwed it up over the weekend. Those ads should have been killed Saturday, but that had nothing to do with anything.
No. I understand that. I'm just saying from the standpoint of a listener, you were talking about how dates need to be circled in red and details.
I'm not running for Congress. Okay, Melvin, I'm not running for Congress.
No,
I'm a supporter of Nick Freitas, and we had the conversation. But what does this have to do with the 5th District, Melvin?
No, I'm just trying to make the point that, what you were dishing out to Nick Freitas should equally apply to you as the host.
So Nick Freitas doesn't file paperwork 2 times to run for Congress, and you're equating that with my traffic department not killing a paid ad that was supposed to end Saturday at 7 o'clock p.m. and it ended, and they forgot to take it out on Monday. Okay, fair enough.
All right.
Fair enough.
We're good. I just think it needs, that was an important issue to me.
Okay.
I think it's, anyway, well, let's go on to the conversation today.
So my concern, I had two concerns with the district convention.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
And why, in my mind, this was a rig job. So I want you to explain it to our audience.
Okay.
Number one is, and it's allowed in the party platform, it should be changed, but you had two or three, I'm not sure what the treasurer status was, but there were at least two unit chairs that were voting on locations and other things that had influence over the election. They were elected as unit chairs, and they were also being paid as paid operatives by the Bob Good campaign. Now, it is perfectly allowable. I don't think it should be allowed because you're either a paid operative or you're a unit chair. But when these votes came up, they didn't recuse themselves. So that was number one thing that bothered a lot of people. Because, look, I have no problem with people getting paid to be on campaigns. I mean, that's fine. And you should be able to be a chair of a unit and be a paid operative. That's fine also. I'm a capitalist. But I then think you have to recuse yourself when you're voting on issues that are going to affect the outcome, because I just think that's disingenuous. But that's my opinion. So that was number one.
Sure.
But the second thing, all right, so let me, deal with the first one, and then I'll go to the second. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it doesn't get complicated for listeners.
Okay,
all right?
Good, Melvin.
So first of all, there were two individuals who were on staff with Bob Good's campaign. All right, they were Chris Shores and Travis Witt. Full disclosure, neither of them were unit chairs. They were Travis is a member of State Central Committee. He was elected that as the presidential candidate, with the corresponding with the presidential term. All right. Chris Shores was a zone vice chair. Okay. Now, zone 3. Okay, from our district. Here's the reality. The party plan states that anybody with any conflict of interest issues has to disclose that. When this whole thing began to happen around the beginning of the year and I saw what was going on, I immediately contacted Chris Marsden. I contacted, the party leadership. Look, let's be clear. I want to make sure we are following things by the book. I think you've observed me long enough. You saw me operate 2 years ago in a very tough situation.
Yes.
I am all about process.
Yeah, in fact, I complimented you on the way you handled that district chair nominating convention. Also, the fact that you allowed my radio show right in there, right on the floor, right by the stage. And I think I complimented you on that profusely, if memory serves.
I believe you did, and I appreciate that. But here's the thing. I want things to be open. I want things to be transparent. I want things to be run by the book, because that's the only way we're going to gain confidence in our party. Okay? Shady things cause people to fall away. Now, I want us to build our party. I want us to build it from the grassroots up. Okay? Now, there's been a lot of mudslinging in this campaign, but let's so that we understand. At the very beginning, I said I need to know exactly what our rules allow and don't allow. Went through that thoroughly with those who are in the top leadership, and we looked at it from many angles. I came back to our committee and I told them, here's what the rules are. And the main thing is everybody has to disclose. And so I pushed people to disclose. And I said, I don't care how involved you are with the party, with the campaigns, because there's no restriction on that in the party plan. So that's not the issue here. The issue is, does everybody on the team know who's doing what? So we had this full disclosure thing, and we moved forward from there. We continued to have elections about stuff, and let me just, if I can just try to create a quick scenario.
Yeah, go ahead.
So back in last fall, and when we were moving toward the nomination process, I actually, a couple of weeks, let me leave that out for now. Okay, so I communicated to everybody when we were having our meeting, after there was a strong vote for a convention. I had already known that was going to be the vote because I knew where everybody was. I communicated that both to the congressman and to Jimmy Keedy that was what they should expect. And so I had gone out and done some homework on possible venues. Because 4 years ago, we had used the Nelson County High School as our convention point. I went to them to see if that facility was available. It was. So I tentatively reserved it. So in the meeting where they voted overwhelmingly for a convention, I said, okay, guys, it's your call on where we have this, but I just want you to know that I have this location, Nelson County High School, that's in Denver's county. I said, I have that tentatively reserved if you want to have it. And overwhelmingly, it was rejected. And it had nothing to do with our congressman or any of that. It was just they didn't like the facility. They didn't want to use it again.
Yeah, because it was in the middle of district and it was accessible to people. That's why they didn't want it. Come on, Melvin. Melvin Adams is the chair of the 5th District. Melvin, come on. They rejected your choice as chairman, and I respect you for what you did in 2018. And I respect what you're doing now, but I got to call this out. They didn't reject it because they didn't like the facility. You were at the facility. The facility was great. There was no problem with the facility. They rejected it because it was centrally located. And instead, they replaced it with one location outside that was 15 minutes from Bob Good's house, where you guys made some of the delegates drive 7 and 8 hours round trip to put an envelope in a box. And when the Denver campaign said, let's just add a location in the middle of the district so people don't have to drive 9 hours and spend all this money in gas and destroy their day to put a ballot in a box. I don't care where you have the convention, if it's a real convention, because then it's an event. If they're far away, they come, they stay over, they meet friends. It's an event. You were driving to drop a ballot in a box, and the thing was in 15 minutes from Bob Good's home, 6 hours, 7 hours, and 8 hours for some people round trip. Now you tell me, you explain to my listeners how that is not rigged for Bob Good.
Okay. I'm happy to do that. So you just created a big narrative, and you call yourself the Godzilla of truth. So let me tell you, somebody who was there, somebody who knows what actually happened. So let's go back to that meeting. The key people who did not want it there were the people who were Denver's primary supporters. I'm not going to start naming names, but if any of them are listening, they know that to be absolutely factual. Okay? It was just a general sense that they didn't want that place. So let me continue the narrative. So I appointed a committee, from that committee, a subcommittee, to do a search, to get input from every member of the committee, anybody in the 5th District who wanted to weigh in with recommendations. They took the next 30 days and they scoured this district, checked out over a dozen locations. At the end of that period, they had whittled it down, and the recommendation, listen to this, was Tree of Life Ministries in Campbell County. What were the key points? The key points were, first of all, it was a location we had used multiple times. It was almost the most central place in the district. Listen, if you did from that point to every corner of our district, the difference was 4 miles. Okay? Now that's fact. All right?
It was 15 minutes from Bob Good. Come on, man. It was 15 minutes from Bob Good's house. You can spin this and give me your rules and whatever it is. To the outside world, this process was sick. And it's why the Republican Party of Virginia is a freaking joke, and you know it. It is a joke. It isn't even a party. It's a joke. You got people that are voting on stuff that are getting paid by the campaign, don't recuse themselves. I don't care what your rules are. They're bad rules. They need to be changed. The outside world is looking at this and saying, why in God's name would I want to be a part of this clown show? That's basically what this is. Then why didn't you guys allow another location in the central part of the district? That would have been fair. It would have shut me up if there was simply another location so some people didn't have to drive 8 hours. Why was that rejected?
All right, I'll speak to that. First of all, I just categorically reject pretty much everything you said, except this, that there are problems in this party. There's no question, okay? There are some real problems in this party. Beyond that, though, I want to say this. I think that we do need to fix this problem with our rules. I absolutely do. Many of our committee do agree with that. However, you don't change things in the middle of a campaign that's already in place. The party, those decisions are not made by our district. Those decisions are made by the state central committee. And we cannot randomly say we don't accept that, so we're going to do something different, because then we become in violation of the rules. Okay? We just can't do that. Does it need to be addressed? Yes, it does. However, let me go further and say this. And it has been addressed multiple times over the years, but we always come into this situation because when you start going down and trying to pick off and you can't do this and you can't do that, the real issue, is the quid pro quo, okay? So I'm involved in some way, but at the same time, I'm getting benefits, so I shouldn't be able to communicate. I shouldn't be able to be a part. Well, the nature of politics is the people who are involved in it are the people who are involved in it. And so, so for example, you say, well, if you're working for a campaign, you can't have a vote. Well, you start looking down through State Central Committee and you're going to start clicking off names. Let's go a little deeper. So let's say, okay, so when the primary, the nomination process was coming up, the congressman is inviting people to have tours of the Capitol, tours of the White House, free tickets to the congressional ball game, and meeting with them and lobbying them for his choice of nomination. Listen, that's a normal thing. People negotiate, people do things. But what happens is that a quid pro quo? Huh? No, it's not.
It doesn't feel good. Look, I get the position you're in, Melvin, and I like you. You know that. By the way, we're with Melvin Adams. He's the chairman of the 5th District Republican Party of Virginia. That's the district that just ousted incumbent Denver Riggleman and nominated Bob Good. We assume that he'll be on the ballot after the SB 8 rules on July 7th or something. I would expect him to be on the ballot. If he isn't, the seat turns blue, and that's a whole different topic and not really Melvin Adams' issue. So, but Melvin, look at the appearance of this on the outside. I mean, this is really what the problem is. And I don't begrudge Chris Shores, Diana Shores, or any of the other people, but here's what it means. I could say to myself, let's see, I think I'll run for delegate. I think I'll run against Jay Leftwich in Chesapeake. I need a convention. Here's all the people that are going to make that decision. I'll have a few fundraisers. I'll raise $75,000. I'll hire them all to work on my campaign. I'll give every single one of them a job. And therefore, they're now grassroots organizer, outreach people, campaign manager, campaign assistant, deputy communications. I hire all 7 of them. I all pay them, $2,500 a month. They all have jobs. They all work on the Fredericks campaign for whatever. And let's see. Now I'll get them to vote for a convention to oust Jay Leftwich. He's my House member. And then everything else I can get manipulated, and they can just vote for me because it's in the rules. I mean, I get it's in the rules, but it's icky. Don't you agree that it's icky, Melvin? It's icky.
I do. How do you fix that, though, John? Because there are vested interests And vested interests are all the way from the top to the bottom. And when you go in and say, let's clean house, you're going to find people who say, I think we ought to change that, but I'm not willing to change that. And so you get at an impasse. Tell me how you fix that, John.
I don't know. I'm not a fan of State Central, Melvin, as you know. I mean, I was on that Zoom call. Things started an hour late. It's like Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus, and this is why we can't win. And now, I mean, look, I don't begrudge what the delegates did. And quite frankly, for the Denver people to be running around talking about lawsuits and stuffed ballots, hey, Denver people, you got 41% of the vote. I mean, you didn't sign the delegates up. I don't know what else to tell you. If you got 49% and you want to talk about stuffing ballot boxes, you might get my attention. You got 41% and you're an incumbent. So you didn't sign the delegates up. So I'm not interested in your lawsuit. Sorry, ridiculous. So I'm on Bob Good's side on that, okay, because that is ridiculous. You got 41%.
Can I speak to that just a little bit?
I mean, they got crushed.
Yes.
I mean, how does that, first of all, I just got to get this off my chest. How do you run a campaign for an incumbent congressman endorsed by the president and get 41% of the freaking delegates? Like, how is it even possible? That incompetence of that campaign is beyond the pale. So don't be telling me about who's stuffing ballot boxes. You would have to stuff like 1,000 people. I mean, come on, right? But here, let's just get to the final thing that really irked me. Why didn't you if you just had another location that was on the other side of the district that people could put the envelope in a box, why wouldn't you do that? That seemed fair to people. You guys rejected it. That didn't feel good either. Why didn't you simply go with a second convenient location for people?
That's a simple question. I'll give you a quick, simple answer. Because running a show like that is very complicated and difficult. I am so proud of what our unit chairman and all of our committee members did in organizing that event. It was very well organized. Got incredible amount of compliments. I've gotten a little hate mail, but vast majority said it was amazingly executed. And I agree with them because our team functioned well. But here's the issue. When you start dividing out, when we have everything in one location, something goes wrong, we have all the people necessary right there to fix it. When you start fragmenting it out and you get a problem over here, okay, you don't have the people in place right there to fix it because everybody's fragmented out and your committees, the people, your rules committee, your credentials committee, they're not together, so they can't function. Okay? And when they're busy working, you can't just get everybody on a quick phone call to make a decision about something that they can't even clearly understand because they're not there, they're not seeing it. That is a fantastic way to have problems. It's a fantastic way to get legitimate lawsuits. And so our district committee rejected that because for us, it was more important to have integrity of the process than while we tried to make it convenient for delegates, we just had to make it a thing that could be squeaky clean. And if I could, you're talking about, accusations of stuffing ballots and all this kind of stuff. I'm going to tell you something. Okay. At the end of the day, there were a couple of questionable ballots. Okay. A couple of them. And they were both allowed through. So our credentials committee did not restrict anybody from voting that was there legitimately, and there were two that were there not legitimately that they allowed to vote, okay? They didn't necessarily realize it at the time, but they understood it later. However, because of that issue, all right, because of that issue, John Whitbeck and Chris Woodfin, who were the attorneys for the Riggleman campaign, in the teller's room, they put up a fight, and because of one questionable ballot, we're trying to disenfranchise 443 voters. They refused to let it happen. They did not even want those ballots counted. They wanted all of them thrown out. I'm so proud of our committee that stood up and said, no, these are the delegates. They voted. Their voices will be heard, and they counted them. But see, that's the phoniness of all of this. When people hear all this rhetoric, but they don't know the truth.
Well, for the record, I've not engaged in the ballot stuffing accusations that have come from the Riggleman campaign. As you know, I've not mentioned it. I don't know enough about it, but I don't think it matters. Bob Good got 59% of the vote. So I don't know how many ballots you're going to stuff. It was an 18-point victory against an incumbent. You got 39 votes. The Riggleman campaign got 39 votes in Bedford. That to me says it all. You got 39 votes in Bedford. Look, I don't like the process. I don't like the fact there was one location 15 minutes from Bob Good's house. I don't like the entire thing, and I thought Denver got set up to get beat. Look, the Shores know how to do this. I mean, they know from the very beginning, this is the business they're in, setting up conventions to topple people, and they've been now successful 2 times. And I got to tell you, this is a warning to any Republican incumbent out there, right? If you don't vote the way the Shores want you to vote, they're going to find somebody who is going to pay them to come in and topple you out of another rigged-type convention. And I use that term because you got unit chairs voting, you got one location at the 15 minutes from the guy's house. I get where you're coming from, Melvin, and I like you, and I respect you, and I appreciate you coming on today. I really do. But,
John,
but to the outside world, Melvin, this really looks shady, and it's disgusting. And I don't think you're ever going to grow the party if this nonsense doesn't stop. And it is nonsense. Come on.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. I just need to respond on that real quick.
Yes.
First of all, look, the way people win is be connected to the grassroots. They've got to have connection. They got to have support from the local people. All right? If you look at the way the 2 campaigns were run, Denver hired a bunch of young people to come in, and many of them even from out of state, to run and get the delegates and stuff. They're going around in these communities. Nobody even knows them, okay? They have no credibility. They have no influence, all right? Good kids, good young people, good people, but they don't have influence. You look at Bob Good. There were people who came out of the walls and said, look, we want this person. They are the local people. They are the leaders from the local community. That's what made this happen.
Denver's campaign got outmaneuvered here in this convention in a monstrous way from day one. And people like me were raising flags to them a long time ago that they were not getting the delegates signed up. Now, I can sit here and say, I hate conventions, Melvin. You know that. I hate them. I think they're the bane of the party. I think they have carved the soul out. I think we're just bloodletting. I hate them. I think it's destroying the party, and we're never going to be successful as long as we have them. If it was a convention, Denver gets 65% of the vote. This thing's a laugher. But it's not, because, look, there's a set of rules. I don't believe in conventions. But at the end of the day, when the convention was set, the Bob Good campaign crushed Riggleman's operation. End of story. But it doesn't look good. You're a convention guy. I think until the party gets rid of these conventions, you're never going to grow it. You're never going to get the right candidates. And, the bottom line is right now, the 5th district, if Denver had won, it's a laugher. Now, Democrats are going to pour millions of dollars in it. We have to defend it. Bob Good, unproven candidate, has got $27,000 against somebody who's going to have millions. It's not a good look. Hope he wins. I can't even get him to come on my show. I wouldn't know Bob Good if I don't know from Adam's cat. I don't know the guy. I've never met him. I've invited him on my show. I get blown off. That's fine. But I tell you what, until you get rid of these conventions, Melvin, I know you're in a tough position. We're just not going to grow the party. And you guys can lose that seat. And then if you get beat in that seat, was this worth it?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. That's what everybody's wringing their hands over right now. Obviously, every election is up for grabs, okay? It's a contest. And so it's all about who works harder, who works smarter, who actually turns out the voters, who messages properly, and all of those. Who has the heartbeat of the district, okay? That's what really matters here.
All right.
Now,
I gotta go, Melvin. I gotta go. I'm way over. I'm like 10 minutes over my time.
I'd love
I'll
to give you.
Yes.
All right. 2 years ago, we got Denver. Nobody knew him from a hole in the ground. We worked hard, and he won. This year, we've got the president's running. He is going to win 5th District with a landslide. Bob Good is an able communicator, and I believe he is going to have a significant victory. We're going to work hard. We're going to make sure both of these seats are held.
I hope you win, and I hope
Thank
your guy
you.
gets on the ballot. Was the other issue is if he doesn't get on the ballot, the seat turns blue automatically. You're going to have a write-in campaign. So let's hope he gets on the ballot, okay, and go from there.
I believe he will.
Melvin, thank you. Look, thank you for your time. We don't agree. I hate conventions. You love conventions. We're never going to see eye to eye on it. I believe until they're outlawed by some rule, legislation, General Assembly, until they're gone forever, this party is going to continue to be the clown show it is. Thank you for being with us, Melvin. Thank you for the time.